Hey guys, this is Yoda. This will be my complete guide to the Stonevault. We're going to go over a VOD of me playing this dungeon on the beta. There are quite a few mechanics going on here that if you just did normal and heroic dungeons, you may not be aware of and are going to be very punishing once we get to higher keys and Mythic Plus. So we'll start at the beginning. I'm playing Demon Hunter. We're just going to do this pull in the hallway. If you're feeling ambitious, you can go further up and pull one of the side packs. It's really good for time if you do that. On the beta, we tended to just go for safety, so I just pulled this one pack. In this pack, so there's Earth Infused Golem, which is the big mob in here. He does Ground Pound, which AoEs everything within 30 yards, so it is outrangeable. And he also does a frontal, which is just dodge it. If it hits you, it's a stun, so be very careful if you're the tank. There's also these Cursed Invaders. Cursed Heart Invader, they cast Arcing Void, which doesn't really do that high damage, but it can be like the straw that broke the camel's back if you have like a D curse plus the AoE going off. So just be a little bit careful. Mostly their scary move is Void Infection, so you can see these curses on our group. These curses tick like crazy, and they can all go on the same person sometimes, and there's like 6 of them in here. So be really careful with this curse. If you track this, if you notice it on you, there's immediately personal or dwarf or decurse or whatever you have. Because if this overlaps with the Golem's AoE, then it's very scary. There's also these repurposed loader bots that jump around and put swirlies on the ground. Basically, they put a swirly, they jump over, and then they walk back in the pack. There's also a Fear Mob in here, which is kind of covered by my nameplates. It's the Void Soul. Basically just kick. You can see like 2 frames later, this is what the curse plus the Golem's AoE has done to our party. So yeah, be very careful if you see this curse on you. So that's the first pull. After that, I decided to do these 2 packs together. Remember, as I said, if you're feeling ambitious, you can pull a Golem up here, and then I would pull this pack on the right since the left pack has an extra D curse in it. So I would pull the pack on the right if you're doing that. Just be super careful. If all of it comes, it can be very scary. In this run, we're just doing these 2 packs together. Note this pack has 3 fear kicks. Also, if your kick gets sniped by an AoE stop, then the fear will recast, so be careful of that. There is also 1 D curse, and these golems, remember, are outrangeable. After the first pull, it's kind of a lot more reasonable to like outrange the golems. Remember, it's only 30 yards. If you're ranged, you can just stay over here. If you're melee, then unlucky. It's, range friendly expansion. You're kind of just in the trenches here. Once it's like relatively tame enough, I usually pull these 2 golems. These 2 golems start at full health. The rest of the mobs are like kind of fighting each other, so they start not full. But these 2 golems start at full health, and you need to kill them in order to spawn the boss. So these 2 golems are kind of a high priority to pull earlier. This run, I was kind of playing safe, so I pulled them quite late. But normally, you'll see a lot of groups pull these earlier than that. After the golems die, we move on to the boss. So Edna is probably the easiest boss in here, but that doesn't make him easy by any means. So first, his move is Volatile Spike. Every phase, he's going to drop 2 sets of these spikes and then do 2 sets of beams and then do Earth Shatter to like end the phase, basically. So he spawns a spike on everyone in the group, or 3 people out of 4 in the group that are not the tank. After that, he shoots out some beams. So the mechanic here is every single spike you break is going to give you a dot. And if you break, 3, then it gives you 3 stacks of dot, 2 is 2 stacks of dot. And then when he casts Earth Shatterer, he breaks whatever spikes you have left and gives you a dot based on however many of those break. Also, if you run into these spikes, you can also break them off sync with the rest, but it does like massive damage to you, so I recommend not doing that. Depending on your healer, the strategy can either be to like break all 3, then break all 3, then just take the Earth Shatterer natty. Or you can like break 1, then 1, then eat 4 with Earth Shatter, depending on the healing profile. Generally, Predsvoker prefers like no spikes broken, and then most of them broken like with the Earth Shatterer. But it really depends on the healer. If you can ask them, if no one says anything, then just expect to break 3 spikes, then 3 spikes, then Earth Shatter in general. Also be careful with overlapping the beams. If you get double hit by this beam as a DPS or healer, you'll probably die. Then there's also the tank mechanic. So this boss casts Seismic Smash, which does a massive physical hit. And it usually happens right after the beam hit too, even though the beam doesn't do that much damage to the tank. So Seismic Smash, when it hits you, applies a dot, and that dot is dispellable. When the dot gets dispelled, you take 50% reduced damage for 6 seconds. So I guess normally like the plan is to get dispelled on the dot right before the next Seismic Smash hits. So normally it's like reduced by 50%. However, the first one, you don't have the dot yet, so you have to use a major personal. And also, there is, I don't know if it's considered a bug or whatever, but if you parry or dodge the Seismic Smash, then you will not get the dot. You get no debuff, which means the one after that is unmitigated, like by the boss mechanic. So it's like basically hitting twice as hard. So make sure you have extra personal saved up for those moments. For this first one, we have Brand, and we're playing Eldrazi Demon Hunter, so we're kind of chilling against bosses, but if your spec is not very strong against bosses, be careful for that. Also, I think Warrior in particular is kind of has trouble with this dot, so sometimes it just gets dispelled on them early, and they can block the Seismic Smash, so that's no trouble at all for them. Here we're breaking the second set of spikes here. We just did 3-3, and then it's Earth Shatterer. Boom, it does big AoE to the group. In hierarchies, this is probably going to become very scary if you start leaving spikes up. I could see another strategy where you break 3 on the first set, and then you don't break any on the second set, just so you don't have a dot leading into the Earth Shatterer. But I will see what groups come up with for that. This is just my explanation for how the mechanics work. You see, since I dodged or parried the last one, this Seismic Smash has no dot, and then I dodge or parry again, freaking Demon Hunters, but since I am playing Demon Hunter, this boss is kind of easy for me as well, so it doesn't matter too much. Alright, so that's the boss. He kind of just repeats after every Earth Shatterer. It's just the same phase over again. Once he dies, 2 doors open on the side, opening up the wings. By the way, you can pull these mobs before the boss dies with moves that pull through walls, such as like DK's Frost Whelp, or their dragon can pull through the wall. I do a pull here, which is both sides, but I don't pull them both at once, and we'll explain why after we talk about the mobs. So there's the spoiler. He does Shadow Claw, which is just a big tank hit. It's shadow damage and reflectable. There's also these engine speakers in this pull, which apply a hit to the tank, which is like kind of light tank damage, but it applies a slow. It's a stacking slow, and it's 20% per stack, and it goes up to 5 stacks, so you can actually be slowed by 100% by these mobs. Really annoying if you're playing a tank that can't get rid of it. So we play 1 Void Outburst there. It's a Void Outburst, by the way, is a 6 seconds long AoE to the whole group, so you can see him like outbursting our health bars here. The reason I delay the pull is because this pack that I'm going to pull him into has 2 of the invaders, and the curse plus the outburst at the same time can be very, very dangerous. If I pull this way, then he does the outburst, then they apply the curse. We have time to like decurse it, and then he does the outburst once more after that. So I kind of like this cadence. There's also these Forge Hands in this pull. The Forge Hands are very, very bad mobs for the tank. Also, they give like no count for some reason. It's like, I think it's like 1 count for a Forge Hand and 3 for any other mob. These are the ones that apply the other stacking tank debuff. So right now I have the Smash on me, 3 stacks that reduces the slow. You can see they cast it on me from all over there. Very cool. And then these Forge Hands apply Fracture, which is a stacking damage increase, I think by 5%, and it like stacks infinitely. So if you're fighting a pack with a bunch of these Forge Hands, be very careful. It can stack up real quick. So you can see the debuff on me here. And then this moment in particular is very scary for a lot of tanks. You can see I'm popping meta, and I have Brand under the spoiler. That's because generally, like, whatever you hit the spoiler with as a debuff as a tank sometimes falls off here. And also he's Shadow Claw you, and you have some debuffs from the Forge Hand, so be very careful. Right now I have like a bunch of cooldowns, so I'm safe. Once it's all together, it kind of gets killed pretty quick. And then we go towards the Machinist in this run. I do a pull here, which is kind of tame because like the last pull was kind of hard, and then the next pull is going to be really hard too. And this pull is a new mob, the Loader. So the Loader has 2 moves. He has the Frontal. It's not aimed at the tank, it's just Lava Cannon. You can see it here, boom. If you get hit by this, then it does a decent amount of damage and applies a pretty big dot, so just dodge. On the beta, it was also bugged where if you died with this and you released, you still had the dot when you died, so also watch out for that. Actually hits our Evoker there and kills in 1 hit. He also applies this Sporter, which is it's unavoidable damage, which is the actual scary part of this guy. You can see he's picking the Warlock here. So the Mortar goes on the Warlock. It does a decent amount of upfront damage, and it's also a pretty nasty dot for 16 seconds here, so do watch out for that. Also, there's just the speaker slowing the tank and a Mender. So we'll talk about the Mender real quick. The Mender has 2 abilities. It has Alloy Bolt, which is, as you guessed it, just a random bolt cast at a random person. You can interrupt it, but it doesn't do that much damage, so it's not a big deal if it goes off. It also casts Restore Metals, which is a heal. This heal actually does heal for quite a bit, so I would prioritize interrupting the heal over the bolts unless there's like some ridiculous amount of group damage going on. Alright, after the Loader, you'll notice there's like a gajillion of these Forge Hands here. There's like 5, 6, 7 Forge Hands, and then like 4 real mobs. So I usually prefer to invis skip this. In Pugs, invis skipping can kind of just be a nightmare, so be ready to fight this in Pugs. But I do like to skip this pull, because these Forge Hands are worth like no count, and they're also probably the scariest mob in the dungeon. So we invis here. By the way, be careful here. These Loaders detect, so if you're invising, make sure you hug the right here. We do almost always go to the right because there's a buff here, which is available for Dwarves, Blacksmiths, and Warriors. Other flavors of Dwarf other than Vanilla Dwarf can also use it. It's sort of similar to the buff in Mists, Once you pick it up, you get 10% verse for 10 seconds, or for 10 minutes, and it goes on everyone who's close in range of this. So make sure you're in range when whoever's picking it up picks it up. So I'm visiting through here. You'll notice that the buff is guarded by like a bunch of forge hands, but I consider these forge hands to be like worth it because they're guarding the buff, and the buff is very valuable. My group's a bit late here, so I start by misering the patrol. Once they all get through, I'm going to pull these forge hands into this pull. This is like a really, really big pull. Maybe somewhat difficult for you to handle as a tank if it's your first time. It does have a bunch of these forge hands, so what we're going to do is we're going to like front load cooldowns, then tank the pull, and then once our debuff stacks up enough, we're going to probably have to kite. You see we have like breath going, DK cooldowns, warlock cooldowns, and I pop meta and brand, so this is like a very scary pull. Once my debuff stacks up, we have like 12 stacks, which is like 60% increased damage taken right now, which is like kind of crazy if you think about it. Completely negating my brand and even more after that. I just bench retreat out, and I also chains the mobs to keep them slowed. If you're like playing a bear, you can also Typhoon into Vortex, or you can ask your group for help too to kite them. Once my stacks fall off, I come back in with Feldev, and then we're kind of just chilling. All right, so this is the buff. You can see us pick it up here, except no one's a blacksmith, so we're kind of just sitting here staring at it. Okay, someone did pick it up, I think. Oh, we have dwarfs in the group. So yeah, a dwarf picked it up. We have the buff. You can see it here on me the last 10 minutes. After that, these loaders tend to be like, in my opinion, the scary mobs of the instance once you get to high keys, because the mortar can stack on the same person and apply 2 stacks of the buff. So generally I try to skip them. If it's just like a pug run, then it's probably not worth skipping them because someone could potentially ninja pull, and the key's probably low, so dot's not that bad anyway. So this is the next pull I do. It's like a bunch of menders. So since menders are generally not that dangerous, I don't mind pulling so many of them. You can see bolts are kind of just going off willy-nilly here, but we're just living because the bolts don't do that much damage. In this pack, I would highly prioritize kicking the restoring metals, so it doesn't take forever. And we're generally doing this pull without cooldowns because we just did the last pull with cooldowns. Okay, so the next pull is some trash into the boss. You don't, oh, do I not pull trash here? Okay, I decided not to pull trash here, never mind. That is oh no, I do pull trash here, okay. So this is the pull I do. It's 3 engine speakers and 2 forge hands with the boss. I like doing this pull because those things only hit me as the tank, and I'm kind of confident tanking those. If you're not confident, then don't do this, since it can hurt quite a bit. Also, the forge hands and the engine speakers will fervent strike. Actually, the forge hands is more the engine speakers that fervent strike, which means they'll do their tank hit on the closest target if the tank isn't in range, which is why I have my group running like deep into the boss room here. Okay, so for this boss, Brock does this kick, Molten Metal. Make sure we're interrupting. It does quite a bit of damage and a slow. He does jump away to cast Scrap Song often, and sometimes like this, the Dorlito will force you to move away as well. So just make sure you have range kicks covering that. Usually it's melee kicks, just kick when he's like in melee, and then range kicks save for the weird kicks. The Dorlito also does a tank kick called Igneous Hammer. It has been nerfed quite a bit since the early versions of beta, so it's not that scary, but if you're not topped, it can kill you as a tank. Dorlito also has the Lava Cannon, just dodge, same move as all the other mechs have. Next we'll go over the exhaust vents. So I guess he's not doing it yet. So this is Scrap Song. The boss jumps away and then pushes a block towards the middle. If you get hit by the block, then you get stunned. Also, this is where he does like the kick that's hard to get for melee. Boom, it's a range kick, and our warlock gets it. You dodge another cannon, and then, by the way, if you're slowed with this cannon, it can be kind of scary for the tank. I think now it's going to cast exhaust vents. Yeah, okay, so when it casts exhaust vents, so what this mechanic actually does is there's 4 vents around the room. 1, 2, there's one over here, and then one here. So if you're in this specific area, like in this vent, and she's casting exhaust vent, then you die. It basically does like a big hit on whoever's there. So you want to go to this safe quadrant. Also, generally, you see these fire puddles forming on the ground. Those are going to form near like the vents that are on fire. So if you're on this side, then it's safe, usually. So we just go into the safe vent, basically. And then this is the move that Dorlita does. Jumps to the middle and pulls the block. This hits me for some reason. Not sure what I was doing there. Also, it does this giant circle. If you're in this circle, then you basically die. It does a massive hit, and it applies a big dot. Also, this dot from this circle is what kills pets. A lot of people didn't know what kills pets in the beta. If your pet is in this circle, it receives the dot from the explosion, and that's what kills pets. So make sure your pet is like not here. If you can pet move it out first, that's a good idea. Also, once the block explodes, it does a huge hit to the group, So while you're like in your safe vent, you kind of want to use a personal or a group CD there. And it also shoots these fire puddles outward, kind of like the four corners. So if you're in the vent, you're safe. There's also a safe spot that which we may cover later that is safe from both the vents and the side hits. So that's the boss. Basically just does those mechanics on repeat. Be very careful for the crescendo. It can catch you by surprise. One trick is they always do it in alternating in order: crescendo, then scrap song, then crescendo, then scrap song, while doing their other mechanics in between. So after the scrap song, just be always aware of where like the side block is, and that's like basically always where the block is going to be coming from. So you can always know about that. Like right now, Brock just knocked the block to this side, so next time Blazing Crescendo happens, the block is going to be coming from here. I think we probably are using safe spot dodge for the next one. Okay, we don't safe spot dodge. So this is the next crescendo. I think this is actually a form of safe spot. So you can see that the safe end is actually over here, which is where our evoker is. But we're doing, I guess I'm doing like a weird dodge here. I'm standing here, and then as soon as the block explodes, I'm gonna dip into the fire. I guess I jumped over the fire to this area. This is ideally not really a good safe spot dodge. We'll see if I do it properly in the next one. Okay, the boss died before we get a chance to do it properly, but we will show the safe spot here. So here's the boss. You can see the block is over here, and the boss is gonna jump to the other side to cast crescendo. The safe spot in this case is right here where my mouse is, or here. The waves that explode do not actually hit here. There's also a little like lip here where you can go that's not in the horizontal area. So you want to stand where my mouse is, and you should be safe the whole time. But since, you know, it's kind of more important that the whole group is stacked, if your rest of your group is not there, then probably don't use a safe spot. Not sure what we're actually doing here. I think I'm trying like a vertical safe spot, which just may or may not actually exist. But the horizontal space spot is right here where my mouse is, and you can also dip into this corner here if you really don't feel safe. But this is the safe spot. All right, so we finish off the boss barely. Also, of note, once one boss dies, it's super punishing. Like, even you can see this boss at 0.79. The moment the other boss dies, they start pulsing a massive AoE to the whole group. I think this mechanic also exists on normal and heroic. It just does like way less damage. So you can see this pulsing AoE. Everyone dies except the tank and the DK, who's like immune to damage. Since we died to the boss, normally I do a pull here, which is just this pack blocking the card plus one loader. But since we died and we had to release, I'm forced to do this pull. Another pull with a bunch of 4chans, and I don't really have cooldowns for it. I probably will end up kiting here. We do have Evoker stun, so there's a decent chance I actually drop my debuff. If I don't drop my debuff, I have 9 stacks. 10 stacks, 12 stacks. I'm surprised I'm not kiting it. Okay, so once we get 12 stacks, we start kiting. If you just keep face tanking this pack, they're in like a real key, there's a high chance you actually die. So after that, we go to the other wing, the Skarmorak ring, and we do a relatively big pull here. So in this pull, there's a few new mobs. There's these Howlers. They cast Piercing Wail. Usually we just assign one kick each to Piercing Wail. If the Piercing Wail goes off, it does a big hit to the whole group. And if multiple goes off, it stacks up. So when one goes off, it does damage, and it also applies a stacking debuff to the group. And every stack increases more damage you take from the next wail. You know, if one goes off, it's kind of not that big a deal. But if 2, 3, 4 start going off, then it can cause a wipe. Also in this pull are the invaders. They're back. So there's the ones that apply the curse. And also there's this Void Touched Elemental. It doesn't do too much. It just puts swirlies on the ground. And also there's these turned speakers, which are different from engine speakers. They cast Censoring Gear, which is a silence, and can also go on like people that don't cast. So since we're kind of overloaded on mobs that require kicks here, if you see the gear going off like on a non-caster / non-healer, you can usually let it go. And it is also dispellable. It's magic dispellable by dwarf or just normal dispel. Here's Crystal Salvo, so that's the swirlies on the ground. This is Censoring Gear, so this one goes off on me, and then I get silenced. You can see that it's a dispellable buff. Silence is not so important on tanks, so you know, I'm not going to say we let it go off for that reason, but it's not a big deal that if it goes off usually on the tank. There's kind of like too many kicks to actually kick everything in this pull, so you can, usually what we do is we just assign kicks to Piercing Wail, and then sort of Censoring Gear is like YOLO / do stops. Here we're actually in massive trouble because the Shaman got decursed and he got silenced at the same time. I think he got Cauterizing Flame there by the Evoker, so that was a good play, and he also walled in. Okay, so the next pull, I'll skip to the part where we pull it. It's a Despoiler plus 2 Howlers. Make extra sure you don't let these Howlers go off while the Despoiler is pulsing AoE on you. Usually I kind of like to pull a pack from inside the boss room with this. The pack I like to pull is the one on the right, but there's also a Despoiler patrolling around in here. Be super careful with this. If you pull 2 Despoilers, it's often a wipe, especially if their outbursts are synced.
So I let him patrol away, and then I pull this other pack, which is more of the same mobs. 1 invader, 2 turn speakers, and some swirlies from the Void Touched Elemental. Generally, I kind of try to pace like my pulling so that the group is taking the same amount of damage the whole time. So we've got like 1 Despoiler and 1 Decurse mob here, the invader, and then the next pull is going to be like another Despoiler plus some more Decurses. But if you overload, like if you pull too many of one type of mob, then it can be very scary. So the next pull, it's 2 of the invaders plus a Despoiler plus some elementals that drop swirlies. And then after that, we're going into Skarmorak. So Skarmorak is actually probably the most difficult boss in this dungeon. Definitely going to be a real pug killer, so make sure we listen up here. So the way this boss works is his phases are 1 minute long, but the first phase is 45 seconds after you start the boss encounter. So anyone with 1 minute cooldowns or 2 minute cooldowns, recommended to use them on the pull before so that you don't have to use them on pull. If you use them on pull, then you're going to be off sync for the entire fight. Classes with 45 second usually just send instantly on pull and it's fine. Okay, so the first thing he does is Crystalline Smash. This is just a tank hit. It's physical damage, blockable, so just use whatever mid. The boss doesn't really threaten tanks. And it also spawns these crystals throughout the room. It spawns 3 of them. I'm just sitting here hitting the boss because I'm trusting my group to kill the crystals. But if you kill 2 of these crystals at the same time, you can die. So watch it. Once this one dies, we'll go over what these balls do at a later time. So once we kill 1 crystal, boom, it does an AoE hit to the group. It also applies this debuff. This debuff means that every single crystal that exposes this debuff is 100% more damage. So if you break 2 at the same time and people that have personals, they're gonna die. And also you're required to like collect some stacks, and they lose all their stacks of the balls if you kill 2 at a time. So he spawns 3, and then he spawns the next 3, and then after that he does the Unstable Crash. So what does Unstable Crash do? We're gonna go back to the previous one. So you'll notice when this goes off, there's some swirlies under every player. Boom. So once those swirlies go off, they spawn these little void balls. Remember, it spawns 1 on every player. So every player kind of has like their own that they can know about. These balls, when you take them, they give you a dot. They also increase your damage to the shield in intermission by 50% per stack, and they increase your healing by 50%. So of note, that healing increase is not limited to the intermission. While you have the stacks, you always have the healing increase. So any DPS spec basically that can heal themselves can take a bunch of these balls, and then they'll be able to heal themselves through the dot. DK in particular is extremely good at slurping up every single ball. You can see Walpin just running around collecting balls here. Generally, you also want to not take balls as augmentation evoker, since the balls don't do anything for the buffs that you give to the group. You can also see the stacks we collect from the balls. So there were 5 balls, right? We have 2 stacks on me, 2 on the DK, 1 on the evoker. They also have a duration. So if you get balls from the first set, then you need to make sure you get at least 1 ball from the second set. By the way, they spawn from Unstable Crash. I'm also like kind of standing in it since I'm like a demon hunter and pretty tanky. As a tank, generally you don't want to stand in this. This is the second set of balls. He does, so the order is, I believe it goes, well, spawns 1 set of ads, and then balls, then second set of ads, then balls. So he spawns a second set of balls here. Make sure if you got stacks on the first set, generally you also want to get at least 1 stack on the second set, otherwise your buff is going to fall off. Here you can see the evoker's got 10 seconds left on his buff. And the boss is getting like his Fortified Shell, which signals the intermission. His buff is probably going to fall off before the intermission. So Fortified Shell basically sucks in all of the crystals that are still alive, whatever your group could kill. I think we were killing 4 out of 6 in this group, but it is possible to kill like 5 or even 6 out of 6. Just be super careful that you don't kill 2 at once. If you kill 2 at once, it is almost certainly a wipe, especially in pugs. Here, our stack distribution is we have 4 on me, 5 on the evoker, 5 on the DK, 0 on the warlock, and 1 on the evoker. Ideally, I think it'd be 4 on me, 6 on the DK. If you're not playing with Aug Evoker, or you don't have like a DK who is like super OP, like in cooldowns plus immune to damage, plus healing himself a lot, then you kind of want a more even distribution. Usually it'd be like just 2 on everyone. You just pick up the ball that you spawned during Unstable Crash. This is our distribution here with the DK cheese. Since he has 5 stacks, he's basically able to, it's like 50% increased damage to the shield while you have the stacks. So the DK is kind of just killing the shield for us. While the shield is active, the boss is casting Void Discharge. You can see he has 2 stacks here. Every pulse that he does increases the stack. So every pulse does extra damage. So if you like fail to break the shield after like 10 stacks, it's almost certainly a wipe. No healer can heal through that really. Since we have a DK, this is our strategy. He's basically slurping up all the balls, and then he's like soloing the shield. After the shield breaks, the boss Kind of just repeats the phase, and the phase is usually on about a 1 minute cycle, depending on how long you take to break the shield. So we'll see the phase again. He spawns the crystals, and then he spawns a set of balls. You can see how one ball spawns on each player. Generally, also, you want to be dragging the boss towards the crystals. I don't know why I didn't do it the first time, but second time we are dragging the boss around to the crystals. So your group knows like which crystal to hit. So it's crystals, balls, then balls again. You can see our distribution again this time. It's me with 4, DK with 4, 1 on the healer. Usually the healer actually takes stacks. I don't know why he didn't take any on the first time. Because it does increase your healing done by 50%, so it's kind of important for your healer to have stacks during this shield. This shield is taking way longer to get broken. Also, if you're having the dot during the shield, which you will obviously have, you have to be careful of that as well. If you have strong group personals, try to use them later in the shield if you know the shield's going to take a while. Since this boss does get the stacking buff, the first few ticks don't hurt as much, the later ticks do hurt way more, and we survive. So that's the boss. Be very careful about not breaking 2 shards at once, and also try to have a plan going in for who's collecting balls. If nothing is said about who's collecting balls, usually it's understood that you're just picking up the one that you drop. And when you cast this unstable crash, it does drop a swirly wherever you're standing, which spawns the ball. So usually you just pick up your own if you're just YOLOing it. Also, don't actually stand in this swirly when it goes off. That's what our shaman just died to. All right, so that is Skarmorak. Anticipate many pug runs failing to this. On the beta, I was actually like trying to scroll through my VODs to find footage to do this video with, and this almost every run was like a wipe to this boss. So be very careful on this boss. Make sure you have a plan going in. All right, so once the boss dies, we can take the cart back to the middle. There are some new mobs here, but first we're going to do a skip. So we're just invising this. I usually like to invis these as part of my route because these mobs like take a while to move. This is the pull that I actually do. Make sure you don't pull the mobs on the stairs with this. It can get very scary, and you'll see why in a sec. So there's these menders here. They have the same moves, Ally Bolt and the heal, reinforced metals, I believe. There's also these new guards, which is the Curse Forged Honor Guard. They have 2 moves. One is this charge, and one is the tank hit. So the charge is baited on players. The reason I'm taking them right in the middle of the room here is we want the charge to be like, see how this room is like rectangular? It's a shorter distance to the side walls than it is like down the hallway. Ideally, we're having a range stand near the wall to bait the charge, like so they don't charge Omega far out. The tank hit is called Stonebreaker Strike. It does a lot of physical damage. Can be cast at range, and it also just does a lot of damage, has a long cast time. The other mob we're fighting is the Rock Smasher. So he has 2 moves. One is Smash Rock, boom. You see it here. Does a decent amount of damage to everyone, and it also applies a stack. This stack increases your damage taken by Smash Rock. So if you pull 2 of them at the same time, then you're going to gain stacks at a rapid rate and probably die. Generally, you want to be focusing this guy down. He also does Granite Eruption, which is these swirlies. I think it's like 1 spawned on every player. You know, just dodge it. These are the Honor Guards, Stonebreaker Strike. Boom, you can see it casting on me now. I think I parried it or something, didn't do that much damage. So that is this pull. Basically just focus down the Rock Smasher and dodge all of the things that are happening, like the charge, the swirly, and do some kicks on the menders. And then the next mob you'll see is kind of scary. What did we die to here? Oh, I died. Holy. Let's see what killed me here. I think I stood in something, most likely. Oh no, I think this Stonebreaker Strike kills me. You can see I have no mitt. Running spikes is down. Met is available but not used. Stonebreaker Strike actually just one-shots me, so yeah, make sure you have mitt running for the Stonebreaker Strike. So yeah, we finish off these mobs, and then these mobs are kind of annoying in keys, this Curse Forged Stone Steepers. So they do 2 moves. One is Stonevault, which only casts at the tank. This Stonevault actually hurts quite a bit, so make sure you're interrupting this as much as you can. And they also spawn the totems. The reason I pull the pack separately from the previous pack is because with all the charges, and the swirly spawning, it can be very difficult to DPS the totems, and the totems are kind of on like a tight schedule. By the way, it can be good to CC these when they're doing the totem cast. They will recast it, but from my experience, it tends to be like a very tight DPS check where they cast the second totem before they die. So if you do delay them enough, then they won't get their second totem cast. So this is the totem they spawn. It lasts for 7 seconds, I believe. It has very low health. You can see that these mobs have like 90-ish million at max health, and the totem has 1.5 million. A lot of abilities do not work on the totem. Anything that's considered an AoE hit generally doesn't work. Like for some reason, VDH Soul Cleave doesn't work, so you have to single target the totems down. Specific classes tend to be like really good at killing these totems, so just be aware if your class is bad or good at killing the totem. Once totem spawns, you need to swap to it. If the totem goes off, it is almost certainly a wipe, like on a real key level. So that's this pack. This pack is kind of easy. Next we'll go into the room. So it's 2 Stone Shapers plus 1 Rock Smasher. Also be super careful here. If you pull both of these packs together, it is almost certainly a wipe. So be very careful with abilities that can ninja pull. We're going to pull this, and I silence them. We could have asked for kicks, but I'm actually silencing them because it's so important that they get moved. We gateway all the way to the left here and pull it away from the other pack just to make sure we don't double pull. 4 totems spawning is like a wipe factor, and then also Rock Smashers getting like 2 of them applying stacks at the same time is also like almost guaranteed a wipe. So we pull this all the way to the corner here. Not too much new going on. It's just Rock Smasher plus double caster. Oh, we actually wipe. Wow, that's crazy. What happens here? Oh, so this is actually the scary overlap. It's the swirlies that he spawns plus the totem. That's actually why this totem went off. He spawned swirlies, so we had to run out. Couldn't hit the totem, and then the totem goes off. Boom, kills everyone. Okay, so I'm running back here, and then we don't have invis spots up, but I do just pull these away, I think, and then meld them off for our skip. I believe that's what happens. Yeah, so I pull away, then jump, and meld after a backflip. We re-pull the pack. This time I think we actually kill the totems, and we're on to the boss afterward. By the way, this Rock Smasher, between pulls, hold on, let me go back before we wiped. So before we kill the first, right after we kill the first pack, sorry, I'm jumping around in the video here. So right after we kill the first pack, this debuff doesn't go away when the Rock Smasher dies. So, or outside of combat. So if you kill this and you still have stacks going to the next Rock Smasher, then the Rock Smasher can apply like even more stacks. So you might start the next fight with more stacks. I think if your stacks are at like 10 seconds left or 5 seconds, it's safe to pull the next pack. After that, we go on to the boss. This boss is somewhat difficult and it's really annoying to fight, so we'll see why in a sec. You can see these portals. If you walk into the portal, you instantly die. If you're near the portal, then it starts like pulling you. But you do need to use these portals for a mechanic that we'll see later. This Unbridled Void is just a frontal aimed at a random player. Just dodge it. It does get a little bit annoying if you stand further away, so try to be closer to the boss. This Void Corruption is what interacts with the portals. So he applies 4 debuffs. You saw our Shaman just cleared one. To the group, these have no duration, so they don't time out. If you want to get rid of it, you will have to clear it with the portal. And this does more damage to you the longer that it's on you. So our Shaman insta-clears, Warlock insta-clears, and then 2 more portal spawn. I believe I cleared on this one, and then our Evoker's probably going to clear on the further one. You'll also notice here he casts Entropic Reckoning. This puts a circle on every player, and we're going to drop poop wherever these circles are. Generally, you want to not drop poop in the middle, so it's easier to move like throughout the room in order to clear your debuff on the portals. Also, you can't stack them. At some point in the beta, you could stack them. But you will probably die if you stack them. As a tank or a tanky DPS, you can kind of like dip into the puddle here to drop it if you want to just cover less area. And over time, these puddles do eventually go away. So this boss is going to be all about space management. So you don't cover the whole room in puddles. And also it's all about managing the debuff. Generally, you want like your 2 squishies to clear debuff instantly in the portals. And then 2 like other DPS to clear on the next portals. And the tank usually holds a debuff for a bit because the boss doesn't do like any crazy tank hit, so it's usually fine for the tank to be holding the debuff for a while. But depending on your comp and depending on the tank you're playing, whatever, there can be different strategies for this. Also, there's a lot of different strategies for managing the space. On beta, we're kind of just YOLOing it, like walk out a little bit with the circle and drop it, but I'm sure there's a better method. Like, for instance, you could maybe progress around the room together in a circle and just drop the puddles as you go along. Or you could always like run to the edge of the room with the puddle. There's plenty of different strategies I'm sure will be explored once the season actually starts. All right, so that is the Stonevault guide. Thank you for watching, and peace out.